Have you ever looked at a solar panel and just wondered, how? How does that flat, silent object just sit there, soaking up sunlight and turning it directly into electricity? It really does seem a little bit like magic. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how that magic works.
All right, so let's get right to it. The big question, the one we're really digging into, is this. How in the world does a simple slice of silicon, the thing at the heart of every solar cell, create actual usable power from just sunlight? That's what we're going to break down, piece by piece.
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to start with the most basic part inside the cell. We're going to zoom in and look at the tiny little engine that's doing all the heavy lifting, the part that's actually turning that sunlight into power.
And here it is. This is the absolute core of the whole thing. It's basically a sandwich made of two slightly different kinds of silicon. You've got the P-type on one side, which we can think of as being full of positive charges, and the N-type on the other, which is packed with negative electrons. But the real action happens right where they meet. That's the p-n junction. This right here is the engine of the solar cell.
All right, so we've seen the basic layout. Now let's do something fun. Let's imagine we can shrink ourselves down and dive right inside the solar cell to see what's going on at the microscopic level. Trust me, this is where the physics gets really cool. So that magic we were talking about, it actually has a scientific name, the photovoltaic effect. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the amazing process of turning light particles, which are called photons, directly into electricity, or voltage. This one principle is what makes everything else possible, and we're about to see exactly how it plays out.
Okay, let's follow the journey of a single particle of light. Step 1. It all starts when a tiny packet of energy, a photon, makes the long trip from the sun and finally smacks right into the surface of our solar cell.
And bam, the second it hits, something pretty incredible happens. That photon transfers all its energy to an electron inside the silicon, giving it just enough of a kick to break free from its atom. Now when it leaves, it creates a little vacancy, which scientists call a hole. So now you have this free-roaming electron and its matching hole. This is what we call an electron-hole pair. And these two, they're the key players, the little charged particles that are going to become our electric current.
But wait a second. What's to stop that electron from just snapping right back into the hole it came from? Well, that is the genius of that p-n junction we talked about. It has this built-in electric field that acts like a perfect one-way slide at a water park. The second that electron-hole pair is created, this field grabs them and shoves them in opposite directions. No turning back.
So what's the result of all this? You get a big buildup of charges. That internal slide is basically a sorting machine. It pushes all the negative electrons over to the N side, and all the positive holes get shoved to the P side. They're now neatly separated, and they can't just get back together.
And all this separation, this pileup of negative charges on one side and positive charges on the other, what does that create? It creates an electrical potential. You might know it as voltage. And just like that, our little solar cell has basically turned into a tiny battery. The N side is its negative terminal. The P side is the positive terminal. It's fully charged and just waiting to power something.
Okay, so we've made our tiny solar battery. That's awesome. But how do we actually get the energy out of it? Well, that brings us to the next part, measuring the flow of that energy.
Right, so we've got voltage, that's potential energy, ready and waiting. But for anyone who's ever thought about solar power, the real question is, how much actual power are we getting? How much juice can this thing really produce? And how do we even figure that out?
It's actually pretty simple. To get that power, we just connect a circuit. Think of it like building a highway. This gives all those electrons that are piled up on the N side a path to travel. They can flow out, go through something we want to power, like a light bulb, and then make their way back to the positive P side. And that flow of electrons, that's electric current. We can measure both the voltage and the current, and that tells us exactly how much power we're making.
So now we know how to measure the power. But what makes that number go up or down? What factors actually affect how much power we can squeeze out of a solar cell? Let's take a look at the data.
First up, and this one's pretty intuitive, is light intensity. Take a look at this graph. The higher curve comes from more intense light. It's a really direct relationship. The brighter the light, the more photons are hitting the cell, and the more electrons get knocked loose. That means more current and more potential power. It's exactly why your solar panels are cranking out the most electricity on a clear, sunny day right around noon.
But here's the catch. It's not just about throwing as much light as possible at the panel. To actually pull the most power out, the thing you plug into it, the circuit, needs to have just the right amount of resistance. It's all about finding the perfect sweet spot.
And this next graph shows that idea perfectly. You can see the power output plotted against the resistance in the circuit. See how the power goes up, hits a really clear peak, and then drops right back down? That peak is the sweet spot. This is so important, in fact, that modern solar systems have special devices that are constantly hunting for this peak to make sure they're squeezing every last drop of power out of the panels.
Okay, next up is a simple one: surface area. And yeah, as you've probably already guessed, the data shows a straight line. The more of the cell's surface that's lit up, the more power you get. It's a simple numbers game. More area means you're catching more photons, which means more electricity. It's the whole reason solar farms are so massive. They need that huge surface area.
And finally, we've got one of the most interesting factors: the color of the light. I mean, who knew? It turns out solar cells are kind of picky eaters. This graph shows that they have a favorite color. Their power output actually peaks with yellow-green light. The photons from the deep red or blue ends of the spectrum, they just don't get converted into electricity quite as well. This is a huge deal for researchers, who are always trying to invent new materials that can gobble up energy from the entire rainbow more efficiently.
All right, so we've been on quite a journey, right? From a single photon down to the nitty-gritty physics and all the way to these performance graphs. But what's the big picture? Let's boil it all down and talk about why these curves really matter in the real world.
So here are the key takeaways. To get the most power from a solar cell, you need a few things to go right. First, you need bright, intense light. Second, you need a lot of surface area to catch that light. But even then, you have to be smart and match your equipment to the panel to hit that all-important peak performance point. And underneath it all, the material itself is designed to work best with certain colors of light. It's a delicate balance of all these factors.
And all that physics and engineering explains how just one single tiny solar cell works. It kind of makes you think, right? If this is the incredibly complex dance happening inside just one little slice of silicon, what kind of monumental effort does it take to string millions or even billions of them together to power an entire city?